Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts, Tom Vassell and Sam Healy.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Sam Healy. Welcome back, folks.
We're taking a look today at Rise of Tribes. Now, this is a game that kind of, for me, came out of nowhere. I know it was on Jason's.
Definitely came out of nowhere for me.
It was Jason Levine's top 10 anticipated games of the year.
Really?
Yeah, but it was from Breaking Games, and they're not known for their, to me, they're not known for their bigger games. They do a lot of those smaller ones.
Yeah.
But they did this and Expansity, and this, I mean, looks like a pretty big, cool game. I mean, the artwork is really neat looking.
Yes, it is.
The theming is lead one of 8 different prehistoric tribes, and you're gathering resources, building villages, and attacking other people.
Right.
Let's take a look at how it plays.
So here I have set up for you a 4-player game of Rise of Tribes. Each player takes their own faction, denoted by these cards that are in the game, and they are basically just player tokens. On one side, they have the order of play, and then, of course, what you need to build a hut, and then spots for your different decks. Now, depending on the tribe that you choose, you can also choose a special power. For example, the Andartsu tribe can choose Exagami, where you can pay 2 resources to convert one of your tribe members, or I'm sorry, somebody else's tribe members to yours in a hex that you both occupy. But these are double-sided, so you can either choose Exagami or farming. And this one says, when taking the grow action, add 1 additional tribe member in each hex containing your villages. So that's pretty cool. If you're the Dan Anyu, you can choose agriculture, where you're going to, your villages are going to produce 1 food each round. And then there's also cunning, where once per turn you can pay 1 resource to trigger conflict in a hex that you occupy when it wouldn't otherwise occur. Each player also is going to take a goal deck, and a goal deck is comprised of a couple of different things. There are developments, goals, and then there are also upgrades or developments that will give you extra points. And for example, this one gives you extra points as well if you have the majority occupancy in 3 lake hexes. This one, Mysticism, allows you to draw an additional lead card, and we'll get to later on to what that means. But you would basically pay this cost, and it would score you 1 point. Now, you might be saying, well, what's the point of the game? Well, that is to score points. It is actually a race. If you can see over there, the 15 has a red background. The first player to reach 15 wins the game. So it is a race to gain the most victory points the fastest. Now, as I mentioned, the point of the game is to score as many points as possible, as quickly as possible, because the first person to get 15 points is the winner. Now, how do you do that? Well, we already showed you in some of the cards on the gold deck where they're going to score you points as you build those different things and you're able to accomplish those different goals. So that's one way that you're going to be able to score points. Another way that you score points is by building villages. Now, villages are placed on a hex if you are able to spend the correct number of resources during the build phase, because villages will score you 1 point every single round. So the quicker you get the villages out there, the more points they'll score you, the faster you'll get to 15. Other ways you can get points are tied up in these event cards, and these event cards will come into play in a number of different ways, but as you can see, they have different things there that will score you sometimes. Other times it's just getting a certain number of resources so that you can use those to turn them into points and that type of thing. So sometimes event cards will also give you points as well. The first thing you do on your turn, and every turn is the same, is that you score villages. If you have any villages on the board, you get 1 point for every village that you have on the board at the beginning of your turn. The second thing you're going to do on your turn is roll the dice. Now, the reason you would roll these dice is because they are, in essence, going to give you the ability to choose which of these 4 actions you're going to do. And since you have 2 dice, you're only going to be able to choose to do 2 of them, and you can't do the same one twice. So, if I do that, I'm going to roll the dice, and that's going to give me 2 actions. Now, the kind of action is grow, move, gather, or lead. Lead is what's going to give me more goal cards that I can put in progress and try to achieve. Those are the upgrades or the goals. Or I can choose to gather, which means that I'm going to look on the board where I have presence and gather resources from the tiles. Of course, the woods are going to give me wood, the lakes are going to give me fish, and then the mountains are going to give me rock. And those resources are used for a number of different things, anywhere from paying for these gold cards and getting the points that are there, buying a new village to put on the board so I can gain points from that. There's just a number of different things that you can use resources for. Even some of the event cards up here are going to be asking for resources from time to time as well. Another thing we can do is move, so we can spread out and have a presence on many different tiles, so that during the gather phase I have a little bit more ability to choose what resources I want and so forth. And then you're also going to grow, which means that your tribe is going to get bigger. You're going to be able to add people in and so forth and so on. Now, the strength of the action is determined by what you roll. So for example, if I, like for example here, I rolled 2 blanks. Well, first thing that happens here is that whenever you roll doubles, you're going to turn over one of these event cards, and you're going to place it right here. Now, it says place 2 of each type of resource on this card. Take 1 from this card for each move into a hex with only opponents. Once the card is empty, it'll go away, and that event is over. Now that I've done my event, I'm going to go ahead and choose what actions I'm going to do. So let's say I want to make sure I want to get some more guys on the board. So we're going to go ahead and do the grow action. You have to put the die into this side, and then everything shifts off, and the one that's on the end here comes down to the bottom, and that's going to be one of the dice that the next person rolls on their turn. So I don't have any pairs of things up here, so I'm just going to be able to take the basic action of grow, which means I'm going to add 3 of my guys to the board. So I would take my 3 guys and I would add them to the board wherever I have a presence. Now, if there was a pair of moons up here, it would actually be a diminished action. I'd only be able to get 2 out there. But if I had a pair of suns, then I would actually have an abundant action, which would allow me to put 4 guys out on the board. Then my second one, maybe I want to move around the board now that I'm not so clustered up. So I would come over here and move this down. That will go down, and these would come here. And again, I don't have any pairs, so I just do the basic action, which is move 4 of my guys around. And I'd be able to move them to adjacent tiles on the board. Once I have completed all of those actions, then I would resolve any conflicts. Now, when we check to resolve conflicts, we have to take into account the population limit of each tile. Each tile has a population limit of 5. If you go over 5, it's going to cause a conflict, whether there are multiple tribes in that tile or not. So, for example, let's say I was able to get that abundant growth action, and I was actually able to add 4 guys to my tile that had 2 already. This would actually cause a conflict, and I would lose 1 tribe member if I didn't also take the move action and kind of spread them out. Let's say that on a move action, I want to take my 4 guys here, since I was able to move 4, and come in here like this. During the conflict phase, after all my actions have been taken, a conflict happens because I have 7. There are 7 people in here. So how this would be resolved is simultaneously each person would remove 1 of their tribe members from the tile in question, and this continues until only 1 is left in control of that tile, and that is considered resolved at this point. Now, a person that moves in and causes the conflict, they are considered the attacker. The person who was already there is considered the defender. Now, there are certain kinds of upgrades like the bow here that can be used during the conflict phase only when you're on the offense, and it says remove 1 opponent before resolving that conflict. So there are some upgrades that you can use to help you during combat if you want to take that route with your tribe. Now, for example, here, the greenish player was completely removed from the board, and that can happen. But what will happen at the beginning of their next turn is they would simply take 2 of their tribe members and place them anywhere on the board on an unoccupied hex, and then they would be able to take their turn as normal. So there is actually no player elimination. It just kind of makes it a little bit more difficult for you to get back in the game. And then finally, after the active player has resolved any conflicts that they might be involved in, then you move on to the build villages or complete goals phase, which you're going to be spending your resources on. So for example, right here, of course this might be later on in the game where I have a good number of resources here. If I want to build a village, it has to do with all of these resources down here. So if I want to build a village, I spend 3 food, 2 rock, and 1 wood, and that will allow me to take one of the villages and put it out onto a hex that I occupy. Now, on my next turn, that's going to score me 1 point. Then I also can do any upgrades if I want, if I have the ability to. Just so happens that I do. I can spend 2 rock and 1 fish to upgrade my tribe to having horses, which means that whenever they choose the move action, my tribe members can move 2 hexes instead of just 1. And then once I'm done with the build action or the complete goals action, then my turn is over and it's the next person's turn. But generally speaking, that's exactly how you play Rise of Tribes, each player taking those different phases throughout the course of their turn, and the first player to 15 points is the winner.
Okay, so what do you think about the component quality here?
Component quality for me was pretty good. I liked everything about it. I liked how each of the different factions had different meeples for them.
Yeah, that was cool.
Each of the different colors were different sculpts of meeples. I liked that. I liked the dice were decent. I mean, they weren't, blow my mind type of thing, but and then the what do you call it? The resource little chits. I thought those could possibly have been a little bit larger. I thought they were a little bit too small for me.
Yeah, also
but
they show they show where they're punched out too.
Yes, right.
It's kind of weird because I think the artwork is phenomenal.
Yes.
I think the meeples being different is really cool. I think the tiles are great, except sometimes a little hard to remember what each tile does. There's like no real, like the tile that gives you an extra wood. There's some special.
Those are the advanced tiles, though. So
sure, but I kind of wish they just put a little +1 wood on it or something.
Yeah. It's true.
But I mean, everything's great, and then those resources seem almost like an afterthought. I almost would rather have little wooden pieces for the fish,
Right.
What have you.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I think it's there. The component quality is good with those just a couple of caveats.
Now, I feel like we're going to be somewhat at cross purposes here, because I know that Sam really likes the game.
I do.
And I do not.
Oh, really?
I do not.
Wow.
Now,
Got to hear this.
Well, I'll go over my reasons, and then maybe you can shoot them down if you want. So
Okay.
The biggest thing is there's a really cool thing in this game, which is the dice. That idea of use a die to take an action, and then if there's 2 moons, it's a negative, and if there's 2 suns, it's a positive action.
Correct.
That sounds good in theory.
And if there aren't any couples, then it's just a basic action.
Sure. But in theory, I didn't enjoy that. And the reason is because you're so dependent on what the person in front of you does. If the person in front of you never rolls any suns, that negative rolling, and that's very possible for that to happen for a good chunk of the game, that affects me. I might roll suns, but I can't do the double sun action because you didn't roll any.
I don't think it diminishes your ability to do well in the game, though.
Does
that happened? That actually happened to my son the first time we played the game. I don't think he rolled any suns ever, and nobody else, and the person in front of him didn't help him at all. So he never got the best form of any of the actions, and he still won.
But here's my thing. I don't know that mechanism. It's a really cool mechanism, but it feels like a gimmick. If what you're saying is right, if it doesn't matter over the course of the game, then why is it in the game? It has to matter.
I don't think it doesn't matter. I just don't think it's as restrictive as you might think it is.
I didn't like that. I also didn't like that when you roll doubles, you draw an event card, which sounds good in theory, except you roll doubles all the time. And so there's constantly event cards, and how does this event card work? And that just felt a little fiddly with the event cards after a while.
We've played games where we rarely roll doubles. I mean, we rolled.
It seems like you should roll. I mean, just mathematically, doubles are going to happen a lot because there's only 3 sides.
Yeah, but there's also 3 blanks.
No, I'm saying there's 3. Yeah, okay. Well, maybe. That's a minor
Well, I guess
quibble.
if you roll double blanks, you still roll an event card as well.
My biggest problem was the dice, for one. My other biggest problem is I do not like the combat. This is a personal preference. I'm not saying the game is bad. I'm not a huge fan of the take one off thing. Because what this means in the game is combat is a zero-sum fun. Like, oh, I want that territory you're in. Fine, I'll build these guys. We'll move in. Bloop, bloop, bloop. I kill your guys, but I also killed a lot of mine. So probably you can just come back in and kill me. And it's possible, especially in a 4-player game, for one person to be picked on.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I really did not like that, because you can kind of sit there and like, I have all these objective cards. I like to finish some of them, but I can never break out of this area. Every time I go here, I just get killed. There's no real way to stop getting killed.
Actually, my oldest son, Michael, had the same problem, and we all kind of deduced, including him, that it comes back down to what seems to be an arbitrary action at the very beginning of the game, choosing where you start. Choosing where you start is much more important than it seems.
Yeah, but it seems pretty obvious. You should choose the thing that lets you build a village. Like, if I need 4 wood, I should start on a tree area.
True, but what tree area?
Well,
not
fine.
the one in the corner.
Well, no.
Because then people can hem you in really easily.
Right, this goes back to Catan,
Yeah.
where people complain about the setup in that one. If you set up a bad Catan game, you're not going to win.
True.
It just, the actions, I felt like I wanted to do more. It's a really simple game, honestly.
It is.
It's put guys out, move guys, do things, complete objective cards. But I never felt a lot of fun from it. Now, I want to be clear, I don't hate this game.
Right.
It's like a 5.5 for me. You know, so just barely there. And I have not played a 2-player game of it, and I'm curious if that would make my, not downtime, but I kind of sit there and go, oh, you did that, you did that, you did that. Oh, now my turn. Oh, thanks for giving me some more moons, buddy. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. It just didn't feel like there was a lot of strategy. It's very tactical. You do what's best in the moment.
Well, I think, did you play with the player powers? I imagine you did, yeah?
And I think the player powers are cool. Not only do you get different ones, and again, it makes each people feel differently. I think, honestly, for me, I play with almost all the advanced rules.
Yeah.
Except that I wouldn't play with every advanced tile, because then you just have to constantly be saying, what does this one do? What does this one do?
We didn't have that problem. We did play with all of the expansion, all of the advanced modules that come in the game, and I think that actually enhanced the game a little bit for us. It made it a little bit better. The vanilla version, the first time we played it just vanilla version with even. Oh no, I think we used player powers on the very first game as well, because that's just like a no-brainer for me. But I don't know. I really had a good time with it. I thought there were a lot of. I like the fact that it's a race, so the first person to get to 15 points is the winner. I like that.
And the game does move at a good clip.
Yeah, I mean,
you're not gonna.
You almost feel like you don't have enough time to do everything that you want to do, which might be one of the things that you're talking about.
Yeah, well, no, I guess I didn't mind that as much. In fact, I was like, oh, okay, good. This game is going to finish. It's not going to drag out. I think this game's not going to appeal to someone who's a Care Bear, because it's mean at points. I mean, really, really mean.
No,
and maybe
it has
I
to
felt
be.
like it was too mean to the point where sometimes it was mean indiscriminatory, where it's like, I'm going to whoop up on you. Sorry, you're just in my way. Not because, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, but and you essentially undid my turn. And for me, that's not as fun. And again, I'm being really clear. I'm not saying a bad game, but I did not like that. While I think it doesn't bother, like, for example, you.
No,
but you and your sons play very aggressively anyway.
We do. You more often than not. Yeah, that's true. But I think all of the different actions that you can do were very intuitive. I like the fact that there were 3 different levels, so to speak, of the actions that you could do. And I think it comes down to it had a. Not exactly, but it had tinges of Stone Age for me, because a lot of people dislike the whole not able to mitigate the dice in Stone Age, and I felt that this one had the same vibe to it. People get hung up too much on the dice and what kind of actions they're doing, and they're focusing less on what actions they're doing rather than the power of the action that they're doing. And that's where I think the game really sings, when you kind of can differentiate the two of those in that it's not necessarily how strong of an action that you're wanting to do, it's which action is the best one for me at this point. And I think that's pretty cool. I think the developments and the goals that you get from doing the lead action is a very important part of doing well in the game. If you neglect those things, then you are pretty much hemming yourself into loss. But I liked everything about it. I thought that everything was really cool. Even the dice, I didn't feel like it was too gimmicky. I just thought it was a fresh, new way to choose actions.
I liked it in theory more. Here's what I would have done in that one. I would have said every turn you get one moon, you get one sun. And then, like, when you're choosing which ones to put there, so I'm always going to get one action that's not as good. I'm going to get one that's better. You know what I mean?
I liked being able to roll a blank and a sun, because then I could get a basic action, which is good. It's not diminished, and then I could get a powerful action. That's like the best roll in the game for me.
No.
I mean, double suns, I guess, is the best.
Well,
roll,
yeah, and again, I like the concept more than the execution. I thought, ooh, this 3 different actions, really cool idea. And then I found it frustrating when the person in front of you were never set up. Like, ooh, I rolled 2 suns. I can't even do anything with that because there's only moons and blanks there.
Right.
But I'm setting the guy up after me to take 2 really good actions if he rolls suns.
If he rolls double suns.
Right, or even if he rolls 1 sun, he gets 1 good action.
Yeah.
Now, the actions aren't like crushingly better.
No, it's just usually.
I would argue to putting
plus
the people
one or minus
on.
one.
Well, putting people on.
Plus one minus one
different.
person. Yeah, that's
Well,
that's
it was like
pretty
2,
strong.
I think or no, to move. You can move like 6 people or 2 people.
Yeah. Right.
I really think this is going to be not a polarizing game, but I think it's going to have people who really like it and some people who don't.
Well, yeah.
It's definitely a high level of interaction and in your face.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the things I really like about it. Is the fact that it is so interactive, and you do really have to pay attention to what your other opponents are doing, because they can be amassing forces, and if you're not paying attention to where they could move, that could be bad for you. The resource management is lower key than I thought it was going to be. It's not difficult to get a good number of resources pretty quick on one turn.
Well, especially with those event cards. The event cards are like, hey, were you running out of resources? Take 1 million!
Yeah, exactly. So I like that. It didn't feel like you were really struggling to do things. And more often than not, you, in at least one of the games that we played, we felt like we had too many resources and we couldn't spend them all.
Well, then you start going through those cards.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
just boom, 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 finish them off.
So I really enjoyed this game, and I'm surprised you didn't.
Yeah, I was surprised too. So my daughter's like, I told you.
Oh, she knew you wouldn't like it?
Yeah, well, I guess she knows me better than that. I was like, I was going off with Sam. No, I'll give it 1 spear down. Again, I think the production's fantastic, and I think a lot of people are going to like it. And I don't know. I feel like there's potential in the system with the dice. I think that's a neat idea. It just didn't come from me in this game. But hey, listen to Sam.
2 hatchets up for me. I think it was a great take on a light to middleweight Civilization game, and it has everything that a Civ game is wanting, but it's just on a kind of baby steps level, and that's what I really enjoyed about it. It plays in about 45 minutes to an hour, and that is really cool that a Civ game will play that shortly. So I liked it a lot, and everything about it, component quality with the caveat of the resource tiles that we were talking about, the little chits. They could have been a little bit better, but other than that, everything is good about this game. Liked it a lot.
Rise of Tribes. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel.
Sam Healy. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side.